All right, folks, here we are, day 2 of Tour of St. Louis 2023 Masters 40-50 Plus. The goal for today, as we start this first lap, was to see if we could get our boy Scott Rollins, there right in front of me, 413 in the red, white, and blue, to move up in the Omnium while securing, right there to the left of me, David Kuntz's overall. So our goal was to maintain the overall, where Kuntz was sitting in first place by 3 points, and hopefully get Rollins, who was 5 points out of third place, onto the Omnium podium. So my job today was to try to make it hard early. So the goal was to get folks to burn some matches, to get some breaks going, to make others chase, with the hopes that we could get Scott Rollins, my teammate, to counter a move and hopefully get into a break with someone who was not a threat in the overall. David Kuntz was going to be chilling in the pack, following anyone who was behind him, second or third, so Van Hoos or Lester, in the overall. So that was his job initially. You can see it starts out pretty hot, 441 watts. I was in a little break here. Had a few guys join me, another one come across. And I guess of note here is not only was it a hard start, it was still cold. Like there was frozen water just off to the right there. First 2 laps, super challenging. But we are in a headwind section through the start finish, which is what we're finishing right now. This is a crosswind section, and it's slightly net uphill. So this was a very, very active race, and I'm going to show power numbers at the end. Some of my peaks. It was one of my higher average power races that I've done. But the group comes back together. Again, my goal is to try to keep the effort up. I want folks burning matches, so I saw I had a little gap, so I kept pushing. Now here's Rollins. He's making a move in front of me, and initially I jumped on him, and I was like, you know what? Let's let him go. And you can see him flick me. I was like, no one's there, Rollins. I decided to let him go in hopes that someone that was not a threat might jump across to him. So that initially would have been a good move if either of those 3 actually in front right now could get with Rollins. I was happy with that, but you can see this is going to be kind of the theme for the day. Everyone was pretty excited to chase things down today, and it was one of the more animated races. So you're going to see a lot of attacks, counterattacks. The pace was pretty high. We averaged right around 26, which is pretty solid considering how cold and how windy it was. So a move comes together. You can see a reshuffling happens, and Rollins is trying to be active. So after those first 2 hard laps, he's trying to get off the front. The guy in front here in the blue, he was a threat in the overall for the 50 plus. So that's going to excite folks definitely, but he was not a threat to us in the 40 plus. So we were okay with letting that one go, but you can see anytime there was a reaction, there was a giant group and a strung out field that was joining joining up and making sure no one was, or that they weren't getting left out. So I fast forward obviously between the spots where it's not boring, but you can see here Kuntz is taking advantage of the fact that I had been active the first couple laps, then Rollins had been active. The group comes back together. Folks immediately, as soon as they start sitting up, he decided to roll with it, and that's a perfect time. You can end up breaking the elastic when that happens. So, the pace is staying up. The challenging thing of this, and I talked about it some yesterday, is in a 40/50, or sometimes it's a state event where you have out-of-state people that can't win a jersey for the state event, but they can win the race. Or if you have mixed categories, it can make it confusing because there's different motives. A group that may look perfect from an overall race standpoint may not be nearly as good when you're factoring in the fact that, okay, there might be a 50 plus person up there that the other 50 plus people aren't happy with. So again, Kuntz had been off the front. It'd been fast for another lap or so, and so I did not want pace to fall. So I took it upon myself to go ahead and go once again as soon as anytime I see the front of the pack spread wide, you start seeing people peel off and no one going, and you're carrying speed, perfect time to just hold speed and see what happens. You can use that momentum, and you don't have to throw in 1,000+ watt attack, and you can get a gap. You can get into a little move here. But what ended up happening was pretty much throughout, as you're going to see some more of, It never seemed like there was a perfect composition. This is the guy who got second yesterday in the break. He's from Colorado. He was not in the Omnium, so he's a person that we would have been more than happy to have Scott Rollins get off the front with and get into a break with, because he wasn't a threat for the overall. If he took up some points, that was great for our teammate David Kuntz in the overall. But we needed Rollins to be kind of a top 2 on the day. That was kind of our goal, was to hopefully have him leapfrogging into the Omnium overall top 3 while having Kuntz maintain the first place. And what's kind of nice is that Kuntz is a solid sprinter. So we knew if we could control it late, if there wasn't going to be a break and we could control it late, then that would be something where he would have a good shot at at winning the field sprint or group sprint. He wasn't going to lose many spots, so we were confident there. And he had a 3-point lead going into this, so some people could get off the road and suck up some points. That'd be great. So here you can see there's peeling off right, there's peeling off left. I'm taking that as a time to move up. It's been fast and it's starting to string out. You can see those gaps were opening. I wanted to make sure, anytime that separation starts happening after it's been hard, you have to make a move immediately to get with the front, because that elastic could break and you could get left out, left behind. It could open up much more than you realize without even knowing it. So Kuntz was on the front. I was not happy with him having to be on the front. So I made sure I put a little dig in there, went over the top. It wasn't a real hard attack, but I was, number one, trying to get him off the front, and number two, trying to get some separation and force folks to chase. You can see we all got pulled back together here, and what happens? Kuntz goes over the top. So the MO for the race seemed to be anytime he was going, him sitting in the overall, people were very happy to chase that. So right here, the guy from Colorado snuck off the front. You can sort of see him up there, the cars going through the corner, and you can see Rollins taking advantage right before the corner of getting a gap, and you've got Kuntz sitting there second wheel. This should be where I move up to help kind of protect the front. Yes, I actually did. Good. So I move up here to help protect the front a little bit. And the goal, kind of like I talked about in the previous day's race, is it's not to necessarily, you're not getting in there and intentionally interrupting anything, but if you're on a wheel and a person in front of you peels off and you're next in line, you have no obligation to pull through when you have a teammate up the road. So that's kind of what I'm doing here, but you can see the team in orange there, they were motivated to have this come back. The guys right in front of me here obviously missed the move. They were very motivated to have it come back as well. And so we're in a situation where people are riding hard on the front, nearly 20 minutes into this race. And pace has been pretty high, but you can see as he peeled off there, I pretty much sat up, and there's a teammate of his going over the top, which we're okay with. So again, in my mind, that guy I did not believe was an overall threat. But once we start getting more folks going across, this is where Kuntz, my teammate, let me know that he was not happy with this move. I'm not sure the reason for it, but he wasn't happy with it. So it was my job to kind of bring this one back. So it could have been the guy from the black with the yellow bands was sitting higher on the overall than I thought. I kind of got those guys confused a decent amount. But that's the reason you saw me chasing, even though the move had my teammate in it. You'll race 101. Very rarely do you chase your own teammates. But that was a reason I there was a threat. Our overall guy thought it was a threat, and so I needed to put the work in to make sure that was brought back a little bit, or at least kept in check. And then it ended up coming back together here pretty much. And you see, not long does the group come back together. There's still one off the front. Then another attack goes. And it was a very fun race. After the race, I was chatting with the guy who ended up getting second overall in the event, in the Omnium. And he was talking about how fun this race was, how dynamic it was, how pretty much every time there was an attack that came back, another attack was going. This was a really chunky section. So there's a bridge here on the east side of the course, and it was a super chunky section. There was like one fast line, so you see me riding pretty much next to the bridge the entire time. But you can see strings out here. I'm pushing pretty big power every time out of those corners. It's not easy even in the draft here. I'm going to take advantage. I got shuffled too far back. My job's to help today, and so I stay on the power so I can move up. I moved up, 15, 20 spots there. This is into that headwind again. Through this corner, I move up another couple. On the right side here, this is the sheltered side, which is why you find me every time on this right side. And then this tailwind, it was a fast section. So right now, Kuntz has done a little dig. He's off the front. He's our overall guy. You can see it strung out. Pace is high, 30 miles an hour, 29, 30 miles an hour. I move up the inside a little bit here, and my goal is going to be ready to either help shut anything down. You can see me moving up further. So I'm trying to move up into a position where I can negate a chase a little bit, but I'm also in a position if there's anything that goes that we need to follow to get numbers into, that I want to be in a position that I can do that. The guy in the front right now, that's Lester. He was sitting third in the overall. He was not happy. The guy in front of me right now is the guy sitting in second in the overall. So he too is not happy with Kuntz being off the front. You can see that was actually my peak 5 second of the day, was to he kind of caught me by surprise, was to jump onto his wheel, and I get a free ride here. So I want him seeing me behind him to help negate him from trying to chase up there. But also it allows me to get a free ride if in fact we do go across. Rollins, you can see, was obviously on our wheel. Perfect here. This is like a great scenario for us. We got Kuntz, we got Rollins going over the top, and I was going to try to go fairly slow through that corner. Didn't work, and you can see now we're in a problem spot where the brake's going to be too big. We got another 3 guys going across here, and I knew that this was going to be Chase City, and sure enough, there's plenty of folks that are not happy with the composition at the front. The guy that was Van Hoos, who was in the red and white there that I just went past, I knew he was going to be making a move to try to get back across that too. But overall, that wasn't going to be a horrible situation for us if that smaller group had gone. That'd have been an ideal spot for us to be in. And you can see how this is strung out. So right now is where I'm kind of thinking to myself, okay, if this guy sits up, I'm gonna have to jump and go across if no one else comes behind me, because that group's big enough that this is essentially a split in the field. It could have been a split in the field, and if I have the legs to go across without dragging the field with me, I'm definitely going to go up and join my teammates there. Then I can be of help. You can see the pack's still big. The guy in the orange here, you just saw him waving with his arm. He's like, I need some help. Get up there. But we're staying on the gas, so staying active. We got a teammate up the road still. That's Kuntz. That's in that front group of 3 there. But again, it all comes back together. I see folks spread across the road. I see 2 on the right. I see a group on the left. There was folks looking around up at the front. You just saw a guy peeking back. And what do I see? This is Jonathan Jacob, the guy who really strong time trialist. And I did not want him to just get away solo. So I figured we could put some pressure on folks if I was able to jump across to this. And I ended up, going across. So I joined with him. I can't remember exactly if I had others with me. I think that there were. This spot of the race was a little fuzzy, and I'm recording this a couple weeks after it happened. But he takes a pretty big pull. You can see him peek back. I don't smash it, which means there's a good chance there's people on my wheel, and sure enough, there were. So these guys go. I'm looking to see who is it. Each time an attack goes, you want to pay attention to who is going. Are they a threat to the overall? Would it be good or bad? If that move goes away, is that how is that going to hurt us? Obviously, we didn't have a teammate in it, so that's a no-go. We don't want to break to get away without our teammate in it, unless all we were doing was playing for the overall, and none of these guys were a threat, because then they could go up the road and absorb points, and that would have been an okay situation. But the guy in the bright colors here, he is a threat in the overall. He's sitting third at 33 points to Kuntz's 37. That's a no-go. I could not let him go. And in that situation, I wasn't trying to jump across to that break. I was trying to bring the group back to this move. I wanted the group to come back together so that my teammate could counter, and bang, perfect timing. So the guy who's sitting third in the overall just got done doing work, And my teammate who's sitting fourth in the overall that we're trying to get up into the podium in the Omnium counters. Great situation for us. You can see Kuntz moves up. He's in a good spot. He's looking around. He sees folks, strung out. It's strung out. And you can see I'm pushing pretty good power still, even though it doesn't look like we're going super fast, going into a crosswind there at 25, 26 miles an hour. It was still an effort. So that was a good situation. Obviously, as you can see, didn't work, but the pack's still strung out. Rollins is now coming back. He's going to recover. At this point in time, I believe this is when the guy from Colorado snuck off the front. I think it was Colorado guy. And that's where alarm bells kind of go off again. And you can see another moving up the road. It's got Rollins in it. That would have been a good situation for us. So Rollins is jumping across. Perfect. I should be moving up here. This is that uphill section, which is why there's a bit of a spike in power. But this is a very good situation for us. We got Rollins off the front. The guy in the blue is a 50-plus guy. We aren't worried about him in the overall. And we're with the guy from Colorado who's super strong, Casale, and he's not in the Omnium. So perfect. But you can see there's folks not happy with this situation. And so a guy goes on the front and manages the gap, starts pulling this whole thing back. The guy who's sitting third in the overalls, there in the bright green with kind of the X on the back, he's not going to be happy with this move getting away. The orange team missed it. I forget which team they were. Or sorry, not the orange team. They aren't up there. But they're not going to be happy with it. So this is the situation where I'm like, okay, I need to go to the front. It's starting to slow down a little bit here. I want to make sure I'm on a wheel to help kind of, not intentionally disrupt things, but be in a position where when they look back, they see me, and it forces someone to have to come around me to get that chase going again. And sure enough, the guy sitting third overall goes to the front. I mean, there's folks that protected their spots in the overall that worked hard, and there was a lot of moves in this race that I thought could go that never ended up going. So it was a tough race for sure. This is again a good situation for us. This team that's going across, they had 5 or 6 guys in the field. We're a-okay with that going off. But the guy in the red and white that takes off right here, he's the guy sitting second overall. Not a good situation. You can see Kuntz. So Kuntz's job was to follow